Kako interfejs sajta može da nas navede da donosimo odluke koje nam nisu od koristi? Šta je Dark UX? U njegovim praktičnim, tehničkim i etičkim stranama govorit će Paul Snoksel, kreativni direktor kompanije Wunderman Thompson u Londonu u svom predavanju Lažni izbor, uvod u Dark UI. Hi, Paul. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Very happy to be here. It's a dark and rainy London.
Okay. We have a little bit better weather, but I hope that we will see you here at least next year. So I hear you loud and clear. You can hear us, so fire at will.
Thank you very much. So everyone, happy to be joining you right now. I'm going to talk for a little while about something called dark UI or dark patterns. This is prevalent in many website builds, and we're probably pretty much unaware of it, but it is providing most of us with what is a fake choice. So I'm just going to walk through very quickly about the difference between UX and UI for those of us who are not so clear on the differences. Then I'm going to be talking about what dark UI actually involves. I'm going to be highlighting some of the offenders and how they do it, how they go about it, and then I think we'll just end up with just a couple of suggestions about how we can avoid doing that in the future. So let's just talk about what UI is. UI is the user interface. This is a human-centered approach to the aesthetic experience, the way something looks of a product, and it is a digital products only. We're talking about websites, apps, kiosks, or other screen access software. The UI itself are the visual touch points that enable users to interact with the digital product, the things that you click, the things that you tap, the things that you swipe. And they may use colors, images, photographic or illustrations, typography. They might use buttons, or they might use motion or sound, and haptics, the way something feels when you get a response on your phone screen. That's the user interface. User experience is broader. That is the human-centered approach to the product design. So it's physical and digital products and services. It could be a website. It could be a coffee maker. It could be a supermarket. It's about creating an end-to-end experience, and it answers the problems that users encounter at any time or the product with service. We're not going to talk about UX. That's the last time you'll see that here. We're talking about the interface, the UI. So in a nutshell, we can kind of say UI is the saddle, the stirrups, the reins, and UX is the feeling you get from being able to ride the horse. So that's from Dane Miller, one of the world's leading web developers, brilliantly, pithily put. Screen grab that if I was you. What is good UI? How can we talk about good UI? How it works, how it helps people do things. It transfers a brand strength and its visual assets to a digital products interface, basically the screen. Also could be Home Assistant in some cases, but we're talking mainly visual here. And it makes sure that the design is consistent, it's coherent, it makes sense, and it's aesthetically pleasing. From the visual point of view, I can understand what's going on. It's not confusing me, and it's something that I want to interact with. That is good UI. It's purely digital practice, as we said before, and it considers all of those visual interactive elements of a product interface. Think how many things that you can tap and click on any kind of app, any kind of piece of software, any website. There'll be buttons, there'll be icons. The spacing between those that allows you to kind of hit them, the typography, the way things are large or small, the color schemes, and the way responsive design works for you. So if you do this, what happens next? User interface design is all about those kind of things. And the goal of user interface design is to visually guide the user, you, me, your mother, your sister, your brother, the customer, through a product's interface. It's allowing us to go through screen by screen and create an intuitive experience, something I don't have to think about, something I don't have to worry about, something that I would really enjoy and I would recommend to someone else and I would come back and do again, something I don't get frustrated with or just toss away because it doesn't work for me. That is good UI. So if that's good UI, what is bad UI? Quite simply, it is design that fails to achieve any of those things. It doesn't make you comfortable. It doesn't make you want to use it again. It doesn't make things effortless. It makes things difficult. It makes things tricky. It obfuscates. It makes things difficult to understand. It intentionally fails to achieve any of these by using what are known as dark patterns. Okay. So dark patterns is a phrase coined by a designer called Harry Brignall. You can find his work at darkpatterns.org, and they also have a Twitter feed, Dark Patterns, and a hashtag that you should follow, where you can see some great examples of dark UI. So dark patterns are these design elements that subtly push the user in a certain direction, and it will be the direction they don't really intend to take. So what do we mean by that? It could be things by adding unnecessary extras to your shopping basket, or unwittingly subscribing to a newsletter, giving that you don't want to involve with, making it difficult to leave a service, brilliantly called the Roach Motel in UI design terms, or it's handing over excessive personal data. So the biggest example of that was back in 2014 when LinkedIn, before you could join, asked you to allow access to your personal contacts book. So you couldn't get every service on LinkedIn unless you handed over your contacts. That went to court, and LinkedIn had to pay a $13.5 million fine in 2016. It's the evil brother of choice architecture. I'm sure you've heard about Thaler and Sunshine's seminal book, Nudge, which brought the science of behavioral economics into the real world by talking about how we organize the context in which people make decisions. So the best known example of that is the example that the guys did in American high schools, is where food was displayed in cafeterias. Offering healthy food at the beginning of the line or at eye level contributes to healthier choices because it is there in front of you. It becomes the default option. It's easier to buy healthier food than it is not to. Now, of course, you can flip this on its turn, and that becomes how dark UI behaves when you're in an on-screen environment. You make bad decisions for you because it looks like it's the easiest thing to do, or the easier option that's right for you has been eliminated from your choices on that screen. So who is guilty of doing dark UI? Well, I have to say it is some of the biggest and most successful companies in the world. We've already talked about how LinkedIn do it, but they're not the only transgressors. I think we've all seen how difficult it is to work your way through some of the things in Amazon without navigating an offer to take up Amazon Prime. Here's one example. Amazon tests these on a pretty much daily basis. You'll be able to see an interface that does the same job that looks completely different. But it is all about imbalancing the choice architecture. So here we have on the left the choice that Amazon has to give you because you've said that you don't want anything else, which is to confirm your purchase and get and don't get Amazon Prime right now. But as you can see, the hard sell, the persuasive moments for Amazon Prime are here. Even if I resist this and I say I don't want this, my eye is drawn to this button here, where it says order now with Prime and continue with free one-day delivery. So that continue with free one-day delivery is their way of saying you are going to pay extra for Amazon Prime from the second you touch this button. And that looks like a choice that Amazon wants to give you. In fact, they're guiding you very deliberately to creating more value for them from your account. Even Swissair goes for it on cookie settings. Now, with the advent of GDPR, businesses have had to go out and they've had to ask people again for their permissions. But the way they're phrasing it is not even. This is another form of dark UI. So you can see here, this is the choice that Swissair has to give you. You can click which levels of information you want from them. However, the big red button is the choice that Swissair wants to give you, which is everything. Because if you read in the button, it says select all and confirm. So your choice over here on the left is taken away by the big red button, what feels like the easy default choice at the bottom. This is how Dart UI works. Another airline who's done a great version of this even beforehand is Delta, trying to upsell you from a $49 internal flight to a $169 flight by making it the default choice with this radial button. This is a decision you made before you got to this page, because this is what's on here, the $49 Delta Comfort flight. I can bet you any money that if you'd chosen the first class flight, once you got to this page, they wouldn't show you the Delta Comfort price. They'd keep you on that $169 price. This is the choice they want you to make, and that's why it's circled here. The radial button is clicked already for you as the default, and also why the big red button, pay for selection now, uses the wording that's about this page, but not the selection that you have made, which is the Delta Comfort one. So it's using the context to just about stay within the kind of bounds of legality, but actually it's manipulating your choices, and it's manipulating over $120,000 more out of your wallet. Now, we all know about Facebook. We all know about how Facebook is intent on gathering as much data as it possibly can. It's even known as called privacy zuckering in the UI community. And this is just one way they do it with face recognition. So because you've made certain choices with Facebook, this is on the phone. Before you manage your data settings, examples can help you decide what choice to make. So they're showing you that there is an emotional downside to not giving Facebook the data they want from you. They're using language, they're using these emotional levers to pull on that. You know, if you keep recognition turned off, you won't be able to use this technology if a stranger uses your photo to impersonate you. So there's a bit of fear in there as well. So it's using positive emotions, negative emotions all in one, because the choice that Facebook wants you to make is blindly continue along this route, allowing them access to your camera and all the other data points that brings. So they can see inside your home, they can see the people who are with you, and all of that is sitting there within Zuckerberg's data lake. Here's a simpler one from a smaller company, but they're using this technique in a way that's similar to the Facebook and the excuse me, the Facebook version. Excuse me, sorry, we've clicked too far there. This is a game site called Humble for PC games. You've chosen your Discovery bundle, and with Humble you can choose the price you pay, or you can pay a bill. But what they really want you to do is to subscribe to their games package. So the add to cart button is orange, and it uses the language add to cart. These buttons work in the same way. If you click these go to your cart, but it doesn't tell you that. This feels like the only choice you can make. And by clicking that button, you are subscribing to their service and all that entails. So you're not buying on your own terms. You're going to get what they're pushing at you. And I would imagine, just like the classic Roach Motel strategy, it's very difficult to leave that environment. If anybody's used Audible, that's a similar way of keeping you in the environment that you continue to pay your subscription. Okay, so that's some great examples there of who's guilty of doing some dark UI, just pushing you towards making choices that you wouldn't normally make. However, I think it's fair to say in the past year or so, things are changing. So we talked about GDPR and that case with LinkedIn a few years ago. What's happening now is a backlash against Clubhouse. I don't know how many of you have been invited to join Clubhouse. I must have had 10 or 20 people telling me that Elon Musk and Oprah Winfrey and Jay-Z are joining Clubhouse. It sounds really exciting, but actually the terms when you join up has major privacy and security concerns. There is lots of data extraction, use of dark patterns for choices. There is growth without a clear business model. And when will we learn? And who's saying that? That is Elizabeth Renieris. She's the director of the Notre Dame Tech Ethics Lab. So this raises some interesting points here. So is it good to be ethical, or is it good to make the commercial choices that you need right now? What Elizabeth Renieris is saying is that if you treat your customers, if you treat your users in an even-handed manner, and you make it clear which choices they're making and why they're making, and what are the implications of their choices, they are more likely not to retaliate. There will be no backlash. They will recommend your service or your product to their friends. They will come back to you again and again, not because they have to, because you've kind of forced them into it through a subscription model, or because you're kind of spam bombing them, or you're kind of emailing you all the time. It's because it is a great experience, and that is now being kind of supported by legislation. So earlier this month, the Transatlantic Consumer Dialogue, which is a not-for-profit organization, which has done some research on dark patterns and has actually taken Amazon on. And there is now a class action on both sides of the Atlantic about the way that Amazon works for its Prime subscription service, as we saw earlier. So that's a really interesting place to follow. I think this will be coming up soon, and it'll be quite a concerted effort to stop Amazon doing that. Prime is a great service. It's the way they want you to pick it up that has got some kind of ethical difficulties. And also, breaking news this morning is that California has essentially banned dark patterns of any kind that trick users into giving away data. So California has some really stringent data protection and privacy laws, which is ironic, seeing as some of the worst offenders are based in that state. But this legislation means that anyone can bring a case against any business who they suspect of using dark patterns to take away their data. And once you deploy that tactic, it means that they'll probably have a knock-on effect on the other dark patterns that are used in terms of choice architecture and in terms of keeping people within a subscription that they don't want to be part of. So this is kind of the world is rolling forward, and it's rolling towards the fact that you don't have to trick people into using your digital assets, into using your digital product. What they really want to do, what we really need to do as designers, as people who kind of are in the world of persuasion, like I am, is to make it fair and make it even, and to give people a clear choice. So if I was to kind of leave you with 5 points about what to do in terms of a UI, the first thing I think is to follow UI best practice. So interactiondesign.org is a great site. They do advice, they have information, they do training courses for anyone involved in user experience, in web design, in service design, and just people who want to do the best for their customers and want to build a sustainable business that is built on best practice. Definitely go there. I would definitely follow hashtag dark patterns on Twitter, so you can see the kind of things that make customers really angry about their online experiences, and make sure that you kind of don't do those things at all. Also, definitely test everything before you launch with real people. So if you've got a process that you think is clear, let's just test it with people so you can see that they understand what you're intending to do, and maybe take on some of their points of view about how they would make that experience and make that journey better through the user interface. Does a button need to be clearer? Does it need to be a different shape? Do the words need to be different to help you understand what choice you're making at that point? Point 4, I think, is ask yourself, would I do that? Would I do that thing that I'm asking someone else to do, and how would I feel about it? Because if you feel uncertain, or if you feel like you're not getting enough information about that, then that's exactly how another person could feel, and you kind of reassess what you're doing there. And quite frankly, the rule of thumb is, if Amazon does it, don't, because it's a bad customer experience, and it looks like you're going to be on the wrong end of some pretty tricky legislative issues in the very near future. So kind of start your project with really good intentions and carry those really good intentions out, and you'll have more customer loyalty. You'll have less problems on social media with people calling you out, and you probably will stay out of court too. So thank you for your time. It's a very quick introduction to Dark UI. There's some more resources here at the bottom of the slide. I'd recommend, if you're more interested in this, that extra reading will give you much more of an insight into what is a fascinating and fast developing part of our world right now. Thank you.